we are. It's August 5th, and we're at the site of the Peter Whitmer Farm, site of the Organization of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on April 6, 1830. We thought this was going to be a church as we saw it out in the distance. It's so beautiful. We haven't gone inside yet. This is about 25 miles or so from the Hill Cumorah and Joseph Smith Farm. Okay, go ahead.
Here, it says Fayette Chapel. I don't get this.
Okay. Now, this looks like what is the visitor center that we saw just a minute ago from out on the big road, and we are thinking that probably is Peter Whitmer's farm over there, but we're still learning because we just got here.
And
Are these two gay boys or what?
does appear
Before it starts raining.
in obedience to the Lord's command, go ye into. Can you read it? Can you zoom in?
Yeah, the Church of Jesus Christ. I'm got it. And dedicated.
This is where the church held their 150th anniversary, the sesquicentennial. Commemorate the 150 years since the church was born.
Okay, now I'll zoom back out. I'm going to see this place.
This is where Joseph Smith and them actually organized the church officially. Look, Melanie.
See, there's a kitty.
There's
Oh,
kitties. Cold and hungry, probably.
they're freezing. I think that must be where the missionary couple live over there in that place. But
Nice
this is
place.
a beautiful, beautiful chapel here. Fayette Chapel.
And this must have been all his property.
Now we're going to go in the visitor center and see what's in there. Can you get, or I will. Okay.
This is the inside of the Fayette Chapel, next to the Peter Whitmer Farm. And we have just been given the first part of the tour here through the building. And besides this being the original site of the organization of the church, this is also an active board building where they have 350 members that meet here every week, every Sunday. There were a number of miracles that took place here that we don't have time to elaborate on. Wished we did, but we'll try and remember them for when we get home.
These are paintings that were done by William Whitaker from the Brigham Young University, depicting just what did take place out here in quiet Fayette, April the 6th, 1830. The first one shows Joseph and Oliver in the upper chambers of the log home, preparing the agenda for the day. There were about 50 people who came, among whom were Mother Lucy being helped from the carriage and Father Smith. He was the first to have heard about the vision and the first to believe his son. This shows family members preparing to come. Martin Harris came down from Palmyra. Isn't it interesting that Book of Mormon, the man who put up the $3,000, that Book of Mormon was published and ready just a few days before the church was organized right then. Now, perhaps a little bit of humor, because if they were going to put 50 people in that log home, some provision had to be made for more chairs.
And the Relief Society hadn't been organized yet, so they didn't figure that out.
Now, Joseph Smith, 24 years old, the very moment that he stood to preside at the organization of the church. Oliver Cowdery at his side, and he has been with him now for a year. And think of the spiritual experiences that they have shared. All of them began the meeting in a kneeling prayer, the invocation. The beginning of the common consent, just as you and I raise our hands heavenward in our wards today, they raised their hands to sustain the organization of the church and the presiding officers, the first and second presiding elder. so impressive because not since New Testament times had the sacrament of the Lord's Supper been blessed and passed to anyone. And that was done very quietly in the log home that day. There were confirmations and ordinations that were performed. This depicts Peter Whitmer Jr., a son, being ordained to an office in the priesthood. Mother Lucy had the opportunity to stand and bear her testimony. And what a testimony that must have been when we think of her following her son for 10 years and all of the experiences she had experienced and was aware of. Now the church is formally organized. Now, in the state of New York, 6 signatures were required for the organization of the church. This represents those who signed, and also revelation received that day became section 21 of the Doctrine and Covenants. Because the church is now officially organized, Joseph and Oliver were re-baptized. This was done in Seneca Lake, which is about 3 miles west of here. And also, the important thing is, with the restoration of the Melchizedek priesthood, now they could receive the gift of the Holy Ghost. And that had not been given before. Others were baptized. This shows Mother Lucy preparing and going down to the water at baptism.
They were confirmed members of the church that day also.
And this lastly shows the confirmation of Joseph Smith Sr. at the hands of his son Joseph Smith, the prophet. Now, all of these things happened 164 years ago in that little log home where we are going. But today, we have the very same organization that existed then and in Christ's time, with Jesus Christ as the chief cornerstone, with the prophet Howard W. Hunter, with the same organization of 12 apostles in the 70s, and all of the spiritual blessings and powers and ordinances that existed in Christ's time, in Joseph Smith's time. So it's all beautifully true, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Heavenly Father loves us all, and Jesus is our Savior, and Joseph Smith was the prophet of the restoration period.
This statue is entitled The Moment After. Do you want to tell about it, Brent?
It's a depiction of the restoration of the Melchizedek priesthood, and it states that the statue depicts the apostles Peter, James, and John the moment after they have ordained Joseph Smith to the Melchizedek priesthood. Peter and James stand above the prophet, their hand drawing away from his head, while John stoops to touch his shoulder in a gesture of brotherly love. Joseph, overwhelmed by the experience, begins to rise. Oliver Cowdery kneels behind him.
Beautiful statue. As they confirm the priesthood on him.
Also in 1980, when the church commemorated the 150-year restoration of the church here at this very site, President Kimball dedicated a time capsule which is sealed beneath this statue to be opened 50 years later on the 200th celebration of the church, and it contains the speeches of those who spoke that day, as well as certain signed documents, etc.
Now, I don't know, you're taking many The very space that you are standing on is the space where Peter Whitmer's home was. The church bought this property in 1926. Farmers came down on a work mission and farmed the land until the late 40s, as the wagon was going over in this direction to some barns to unload the hay. The wagon wheel kept hitting some rocks, and repeatedly more and more. Upon investigation, they found the remains of a 20 by 30 foundation. Now, the church brought down the archaeologists, and as they investigated, Going 10 feet out in all directions from this 20 by 30 foundation, they found over 2,000 artifacts. That included many, many nails, broken dishes, pieces of iron, and so forth. Going an additional 10 feet, nothing. And so the very space that you are on is where Peter Whitmer's home was. The reconstruction of the home is from Seneca logs in this area, homes that were still standing. And all of the furniture and the furnishings are just to give you an idea of what it might have been like when Peter Whitmer and his family lived here. Mother and father, 3 sons in their 20s, Elizabeth Ann, who was 15, and Joseph, Emma, and Oliver as their guests. And one evening after the meal was over, she went out that door to milk the cow. And there she had the experience of meeting Angel Moroni and becoming the 7th member of the Whitmer family to receive direct testimony that this was God's work. The Angel Moroni said to her, Mother Whitmer, you are tired, you are burdened, and indeed she was. And he showed her the gold plate, and she said that she went away with joy and strength to carry on. And they stayed in this home for another year until April 1831, at which time the call came for the saints to go to Kirtland, Ohio. They sold everything, took with them what they could, and that was the end of that era.
Now, Angel Moroni appeared to her when?
During the process of the translating and so forth, I can't tell you exactly. It was before the church was formally organized.
Mary Whitmer?
Mary Whitmer, the mother.
That was
What did happen? Well, the church was organized in a similar setting right here. The 3 and the 8 witnesses signed their testimonies. The sacrament was blessed and passed for the first time. The first 3 conferences of the church were held within these walls. 20 sections of the Doctrine and Covenants were received here, and the Book of Mormon was completed. Now, if all of these things happened, you know the Spirit of Jehovah was here. And so now, there's one other thing. If you'd like to go upstairs with me, I'd like to show you the upper chamber.
Let him go ahead.
Look in there on the bedroom.
I will.
Stairs won't be easy on the knees, but
It's worth it.
there are 2 bedrooms up here, the one with the 3 beds on that side, and then this one is the one that is so special because just as we saw in the visitor center, the painting, the 2 tables and the drapes are not the same, but that represents the very space where the Book of Mormon was completed, and in the Doctrine and Covenants 128 it says, and again the voice of God was heard in the upper chambers of old Father Whitmer's home. So, 128.
Yes. Håller dagsfest svensk. Alltså där
You're welcome to that house.
bäst på kammaren i det 50 år sedan. Och vi dagsfest svensk. Alltså som sagt. Det är han inte fin som sagt. You can open the clothes from here to the fast space and stuff.
Did you get it?
Can you feel the Spirit here?
Yeah.
Does he understand that?
Received their testimony and heard the voice of the Lord.
That's right. And then I was going to
You
show
want to
you.
come say it, Matt? So it said right. This is out the door of the, oh.
2 things about it that are unusual. You might want to see this get here in the light. The testimonies of the 3 and the 8 were
They're on the
always in the back. for the original.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, it's just in prose.
Without
Um,
verse or...
And the part that was translated here is the first part. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't do it. But the end part from Mosiah on to the end was translated in harmony. And then here, in this very home, this first part, or the small plates, were translated directly above your head.
Hmm.
Så där kan husen i skrivplaten i textversion.
Has it got the,
As we step out the door of the Peter Whitmer farm, as you see the tall grove of trees out there,
made when?
is
This is the original.
the location where the three witnesses received their testimony.
This is not an original, it's a copy
And
that was made by that
The
company
voice of the Lord was
in
heard.
1970, is that when it was? But it is a copy of the original Book of Mormon. The original, someone told us that they were worth $20,000.
I was gonna say, yeah. That's the, I forget what they call the number at the bottom is the
I know,
signature. Yeah.
Signature page.
the
Signature.
signature page,
Yeah.
37 signatures.
We were told it was okay to pick an apple from the tree. What are the benches for out here? What are the benches, sister? What are the benches for out here?
Whatever you would like. Maybe the best for over.
Oh, okay, so they have room. Okay.
If I don't put that, you'll know I'm involved in the tour, but otherwise I don't.
Brigham Young said it, but I have to coin his words. This is the place. Huh. Oh, we're in his picture.
Get it back to the place there.
I will. Sorry.
This, are you filming?
I just
All right, take your time.
I'll videotape this. That's cute.
Explain who they are.
These are the young men that were on the tour with us as we visited the Visitor Center and the Peter Whitmer home. And they are from Sweden, and the one young man standing next to the sister missionary doesn't speak any English. And the other young man, who is 25, speaks...
Excuse me, but I think they're from Switzerland.
Oh, I said Sweden? I'm sorry, Switzerland. I meant Switzerland. Yeah.
And the young man taking the picture there in the striped
He
shirt
does speak.
speaks English and does the translating for him.
And they're speaking... What were they speaking? Something?
Swiss German
Swiss German.
dialect.
And anyway, this is the Peter Whitmer home here, as we're leaving. Okay, now we're going to go back inside, come on, the visitor center, and take some of the things that we saw in there, even though we already did the one presentation that she presented with a series of pictures. We want to get some of the other, the David Whitmer and the three witnesses and the other things that are in there. So, I don't know if we can get it. No, we'll just walk around.
This is the artist concept of Peter Whitmer Sr. On this 100-acre farm, which he owned, was where the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was organized April 6, 1830.
Point to the different places where the different witnesses came from and Joseph Smith came from and how they came together.
Joseph Smith, of course, was born in
Harmony.
Harmony. No.
Well, that's where they came from. He wasn't born. He was born in Sharon, Vermont, but he's coming with Emma from Harmony.
And they had come from Harmony here, where part of the translation of the
Apple.
Book of Mormon was completed, and they came up here to Fayette, to the Peter Whitmer farm here to complete the translation. And of course,
Who came from Harrisburg? Way down there?
I
I
don't
can't remember.
remember. Anyway, this is the site in Harmony, Pennsylvania, along the Susquehanna River.
Of which there is no more Harmony. It's called...
Oakland, where the priesthood was restored. And of course, then they came here to Palmyra, where Joseph Smith's family lived and where he obtained the plates at the Hill of Cumorah. And then down to Harmony, where they worked on the translation because they were being persecuted so much here in Palmyra, and then back to Fayette to complete the translation and to,
And it's a good little ways even from Fayette to Palmyra where that was published.
it was a full day's journey from
Yeah.
Palmyra.
And as we experienced it, almost 25 miles probably.
And one day by chance, Oliver Cowdery met David Whitmer in Palmyra. They struck up a friendship, and that's how they became associated with one another, and eventually that led to Oliver Cowdery suggesting to the prophet Joseph Smith that they could go to the Whitmer farm there to complete the translation, and it would be completed here. And this is where the three witnesses received their testimony, as we showed you at the back of the Peter Whitmer cabin in those
Silver
trees out
trees.
there from the Lord. And of course, this is where the church was organized. So there's a real sweet spirit, special spirit here that is hard to describe on tape and to put into words, but we've all felt it today. And to be able to stand in the very spot where the church was organized.
It's awesome. It's just
It's just,
more than words can begin to express.
there's a tour going on currently that I'm waiting for to videotape.
And what was it she said? Something about one had the means, one had the place, and what was it? How did that go? Come over here, I'll videotape. There's a beautiful...
Portraits of the three witnesses, on the left being Oliver Cowdery, in the middle Martin Harris,
Wait.
and on the end on the right David Whitmer,
The son of Peter Whitmer.
the son of Peter Whitmer.
He and his family, he had five boys and 3 girls in their family.
And Oliver Cowdery, of course, was the scribe. He had the
Knowledge, was
knowledge.
it?
Martin Harris
Had
in
the
the middle
means,
had
the
the
money.
means, and David Whitmer had the place where all of this was able to come together.
And anybody that thinks it was by chance that these 3 men came together with the prophet is sadly mistaken, because it wasn't by chance. It was by divine inspiration and through the guidance that the Lord provided to them.
And it was all of the sons, the Whitmers, that were 8 witnesses here, along with Hiram Page and Joseph Smith Sr., who were all witnesses here. Hiram Page being the son-in-law of Peter Whitmer. He married one of the Whitmer daughters.
Oh, that's what we want to do. That's what we want. And of course, that's an artist's conception of the room that we were just in.
And the prophet Joseph and Oliver Cowdery in the process of transcribing what the prophet was telling them. Here we are at the Palmyra Cemetery in Palmyra, and this is the Martin Harris plot of land, and we couldn't find it. We had a difficult time finding it. If you see this bench right here over here, it was actually over the gravestone of what we believe to be is Martin Harris. But this little square plot right here is where the Harrises are located, and as I move forward, and it's really a shame because you'd think that the church or somebody would have taken better care of these, but if you look down here, it tells you, and I don't know if you can see it very well there, but that's Martin Harris. Now, it's the wife of Martin Harris, okay? And this is the headstone right here that we believe is actually Martin Harris's grave, but it's hard to focus in on it. You'll have to forgive me, I'm not used to doing most of this filming. But that's the table leg, and the actual headstone is in the shadow here, right here. And I don't know if you can actually read any of the writing on it. But we believe that this is Martin Harris's tombstone right here. It's very poorly kept. And then next to it here would be his wife's. And then his sons and daughters. This one here is the easiest to read. But you can definitely see that it says Martin Harris.
And give us a fair trial. And all Governor Ford would say to John Taylor was, it is a very unpleasant affair. Well, as John Taylor returned to the Hamilton house, seeing Smith and the Carthage Braves gathered around, he saw a soldier standing nearby, and he said, you go get your captain, and I'll pay you well.
We are now on our way to Ohio. We're still in the state of New York. We're somewheres west of Buffalo on the thruway, they call it, which is the freeway here that goes all the way from New York through the little upper notch of Pennsylvania and into Ohio. And somewhere up here we anticipate seeing a welcome to Pennsylvania sign pretty soon. The next major town is Erie, Pennsylvania.
But this is just so beautiful with the green trees, the blue sky, the white clouds. Well,
You can see how thick the trees are. We're trying to imagine what it would look like in fall when the leaves start turning colors, how beautiful this must really be at that period of time. One of these years we'll have to come back again in the fall and see what we can see.
Over there.
Beautiful. Great place to raise a family, I would think.
We get to
Anywheres
see
up in
graffiti.
here. See no graffiti
On the
anywhere.
overpasses or on the
No
walls.
signs of
Or
any gang activity here.
don't even hear many sirens or
When we were in the Finger Lakes area over
Earlier
towards
today.
Palmyra earlier today, boy, what a neat area to grow up in. I don't know what kind of a living can be made back here. Certainly in my business, the grocery industry, the wages aren't nearly as high as they are back home, so I imagine that they must really save on their housing. We have yet to see what housing costs back here, but it must be considerably cheaper than what it is out on the West Coast, because groceries are not any cheaper, and gasoline is relatively the same here as it is back home. Anyway, the time right now is 10 minutes to 7 Eastern Standard Time.
we just got done eating dinner.
We just had dinner at Denny's. Just crossed over some stream, lake, creek, whatever. There's tons of them back here.
Gowanda. A lot of Indian names.
But the Sag and Fox Indians, this is a big area that they were heavy in. And in upstate New York. And many of the properties and names of properties back here, especially around the Finger Lakes,
Tonawanda.
have the Sag and Fox names to it. Canandaigua, Tonawanda, just lots of Indian names. But everything is so green and beautiful, as you can see. I'll be able to take you these pictures. Anyway, we'll probably shut it off for now, and then if we see anything worth filming later on, if there's still enough light, we'll try and get it then.
Hi. Here we are in Pennsylvania, you'll be happy to know that America starts here. And we're right on Lake Erie. As you can see it out there, I don't know if you can tell, but you can't even see the other side of it. It looks like the ocean. There's Lake Erie. Okay. Oh,
Today's date the 6th.
yeah.
This is Saturday the 6th of August, and we are now in Ohio. We spent the night in La Roche,
West Springfield.
West Springfield, Pennsylvania, at the La Roche Motel, excuse me. And we got up and left and are now on our way to Kirtland, Ohio. See by this sign that we're 40 miles from Cleveland. Just past Painesville, which is 15 miles away. 7 miles the other side, we'll be turning off and heading down to Kirtland. And we have no idea how far down Kirtland is from there, but it doesn't appear to be too far.
It's a nice day. I don't know how many degrees it is. 65 degrees.
Outside temperature, it's overcast partially, but it's not raining, and
We're glad.
it's a very nice day, appears to be. Good for traveling, good for seeing. As you can see by what Gail's photographing out the car window, and excuse the dirty car window, but I haven't had a chance to clean it. There's not a whole lot of difference from one state to the other, with the exception of Ohio appears to be a little bit drier where we're at than where we've been in New York or Pennsylvania. But certainly the trees
Wouldn't this be pretty in the fall?
and yes,
Oh,
it would.
boy.
The whole thing would be gorgeous. You can see that there's still just tons of trees.
Lots of apple trees.
Lots of apple trees, and even grape
And
vineyards. They have a number of vineyards up here. And the one beautiful thing about it that I like is the speed limit on the state highways is 65, whereas in New York and Pennsylvania it's 55.
And we're still not that far from Lake Erie. I don't know if it's possible. Maybe at some point we might be able to see it over there.
The other thing that we realized is that Lake Erie, which is out in the direction Gail's filming, runs the entire length of the state of Ohio.
Well, except for a little bit. And that's Michigan bordered up here.
And all of Pennsylvania on the north end of the state, and pretty much all of the state of New York.
The big old lake.
So I'll give you an idea of how big it is, and from what we photographed yesterday, in fact, look out there, you might be able to see something. To get an idea, when I said that we couldn't see the other side of the lake, you really can't see the other side of the lake.
So we're going to turn it off now and videotape in a little bit. Maybe when we get to the Kirtland Temple and
Or if
sites
we
there.
see something of interest in between. That's pretty right
I
there.
know, I just was trying to get it, but the van got in the way.
These almost look like cypress trees, these tall ones.
Beautiful state. Beautiful, beautiful. Don't see this along the side of the roads in California.
Gail lived here when she was 4 years old.
No, Brett. That's not right.
Up till you were
No,
4?
I was in 4th grade.
Oh, I'm sorry.
A little different.
Gail lived here when she was in the 4th grade, I stand corrected. Not here, but down in Ohio. man, that's a
It's
whole other
over.
story.
Yeah. Okay.
Here we are in Kirtland. We had no idea how far Kirtland was from the freeway, and we found out it's a mile. As you can see by the sign on the road here coming up, it says, "Welcome to the city of Kirtland, Ohio."
Can't get it too well. It's kind of bumpy. There says Kirtland Temple, but we missed that. But that's okay.
Established in 1811. As you can see out there, can you see the steeple on the temple out above the trees?
It's hard to find it in this because it's black and white here, and it's hard to tell whether it's a tree or it's a steeple. And now we're behind a cement truck.
You go slowly. You can see the steeple through the power lines there above the tree line out there on the horizon on the sky.
Well,
As we come down the hill here, there is a chapel, LDS Chapel at the bottom here on the left.
Stake Center, Kirtland, Ohio Stake.
Brick building right here with a flag out in front of it on the left. Nice building.
You gonna turn around again?
Did you want me to turn around? Dear?
Just a second.
They